Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Nathan here with Win with Nathan. Guys, I'm excited to bring you this video. We've known about this for a while. It came out last week. Guys, guidelines, extended guidelines here at the Lender. Guys, we are blessed to really know what we're doing. We're very good at what we do. When it comes to the non-QM space, it's hard to beat us. And a lot of lenders always talk about beat people in rate. Guys, rate means nothing, right? Rate means nothing if you can't fund the loan. Rate means nothing if you can't get exceptions done. Rate means nothing if you don't have the guidelines that allow it, right? You'll see people out there, there's brokers that try to go to the direct source, right? Like even our direct source of money, and try to fund loans directly with them, but they don't have the same guidelines as us, right? So they still have to broker through us to go to the same source of funds because guess what? We are the experts. We have extended guidelines for a reason. So with that said, let me bring you guys up to speed on the newest release from the Lender, right? This is for direct and this is for wholesale. Let's talk about the new guidelines, all right? My biggest thing is that this is the highlight of all of this. Everything else is great, but this is the cherry. The cherry on top doesn't even explain it. This is like the prime ribeye, best steak you ever had. This is the meat of everything, right? Everything else is like a side dish. This is the main course. Guys, 15% down on a NONI, a DSCR loan with short-term rental income. That's huge, right? We've always had DSCR Plus, which is called a NONI Plus. I know a lot of brokers out there on videos have said that didn't exist for the longest time. It's always been out there. But that was for seasoned investors, 1.25 debt service coverage ratio, reserves, right? And you didn't have options otherwise. You had to be a seasoned investor. Well, guess what, guys? Now we brought to you 15% down for first-time investors, right? People that debt service a 1 ratio. It's tough to get a 1.25 out there at 15% down at a 1 ratio. Yes, the rates are higher, but if you're trying to leverage, right, you want less money down. So guys, that's the highlight, the meat of the main dish of these guidelines is that now the DSCR program, what we call the NONI, is as little as 15% down, right? Now don't go complaining like, hey, the rate is much higher than 25% down. Well, no crap, Sherlock. That's how all mortgages work of all types, right? I get that a lot from people like, well, you know, at 25% down the rate was X. Why is this one so much higher? It's a lot more risk, stupid. That's what I want to tell people, especially brokers who don't understand it. There's a grid. It's all about risk. And all right, it's just like every other loan. So with that said, that's my little rant. Let's talk about some of the other guidelines, right? So all this is released. If you broker with us or anything, you have access to our AI guideline tool, which is called the OWL. You can read these guidelines in there. You can always look up the matrix. So let's talk about this. So that to me is the main course of the dish. And if I had to pick a second one, it's going to be that we've always had high seller concessions, right? You had 4% at the NONI unless you put 30% down. You had 6% automatically for the NONI Plus. Well, here's what we did to make it simple, guys. Whether you do a DSCR Plus, a NONI Plus, right? You automatically get 6% seller concessions, right? That's huge, right? No other lender does that I've seen. Some go up to 3. I've seen 1 or 2 go up to 4. Guys, 6%. It's a game changer when you have seller concessions, right? You can buy the interest rate down. You can pay all your closing costs. You can. We've done it for a deal for a customer, paid 3 years up front of HOA. No one else I've seen does that. We did 3 years of HOA. That's huge. So seller concessions is a huge thing. We also have it where new construction, you can go up to 9%, right? We've always had that. Seller concessions is big for new construction because here's the thing. You might have, hey, builder, if you want to put the kitchen set in of appliances, raise the price up, cover it, there you go, right? So that's a huge change going from 4 to 6. You always had the ability to do 6, but you had to put 30% down. So again, first time investors don't have any STR restrictions. That is huge. It's always been you got to be a seasoned investor to do 20 or 15% down. Now there is no restriction for it. So this came up last quarter. I had a customer that had problems trying to get lending, and the reason for it is he's considered a first-time home buyer, right? And especially going DSCR, you can't do that. Other lenders failed where we succeeded, and here's the reason why. If you talk to the man, he actually wasn't a first-time home buyer. He actually owned in a community I'm having a brain fart what they call it, but basically you don't own the land, you buy it as an equitable share. It's a syndication, right? He doesn't directly own the deed. His name's not on it, all that stuff. So no one out there would consider him a seasoned or a non-first time home buyer. Well, guess what? We did. The reason? Because I got the settlement statement. I got the settlement statement that shows his name underneath an LLC where he sold his shares, which meant he was a home buyer. In the past, people only looked at deeds. However, we will look at more than that. And it's actually in our guidelines now that we'll take third-party proof like a settlement CD that showed proof that you own the property. It's no longer where it has to be directly on the deed like most lenders do, right? Now, the caveat to all this, too, is that he also was married and his wife had a primary residence. Now, they kept things separate. Even though he lived there, he's still considered a first-time home buyer. Well, we actually added a guideline that says if we have 12 months proof of positive payment history and it's a spouse that's on it in a non-communal spouse state, if I said that right, we will not consider them a first-time home buyer, right? That's because they're not, right? I mean, the wife owns it, but you got to show proof that it's 12-month payments on time, etc. This, again, going with my food analogy, if I had to explain, like, to me, my favorite dish with the steak is going to be some sort of potato. So I'm going to say this is the potato, right? So underwriting short-term rental loans has become difficult for some lenders. Not really for us, but for some, right? You've got the normal way, which is a market survey 1007. You've got the air DNA projections. You've got actual income. We added a fourth way, which is a third party. Right? So if there's a third party done by an appraisal that's similar to a 1007, doesn't have to be a 1007 rent survey anymore. If an appraiser provides that and it's got to have a few things on it, we will take that. The reason we brought that to the market is because a lot of appraisers just don't feel comfortable putting short-term rent on a 1007. You might say, why? Well, that's because for the last few years, a lot of lenders were like winking or nudging, whatever, like, hey, do a Fannie Mae loan, do whatever. Can you like put short-term rental income on here but not call it short-term rental? Can you do all this stuff? And Fannie Mae came out and said, again, our guidelines do not allow for this for a single family, single unit. So I think now, that was this year that it came out. I think that's why we're seeing more appraisers have pushback or drawback on that. So that is a new thing as well. And there's groups out there that have a alternative to a 1007, and all the groups are developing it. So that's going to be huge. It's going to make the appraisers feel comfortable, and it's going to be great. Let's see. There's a lot of updates, so I highly recommend you guys scheduling your time to figure this out. But a couple ones that I see are big that aren't right now is going to be BRRRR method and people that are refinancing. And what I mean by that is a lot of people with long-term rentals, right? You're always told, hey, let's just be honest. A lot of people out there will teach you to commit fraud, which is, hey, backdate a lease several months before you do a refinance, a BRRRR method or whatever, because the date can't be after the application date. You might be thinking, is he serious? People teach this? Absolutely. I was at the biggest conference in short-term rentals a couple years ago, and one of the speakers actually told you how to commit mortgage fraud with signing leases. It was very funny that he was a speaker. Anyways, so after application date, if you do a lease, you have to have security deposit, possibly 1 month rent up front, but we will take that lease, right? That's different where in the past it had to be a lease that was signed, backdated, whatever, right? If it's a 12-month lease that's after application date, especially for brokers who maybe take 20 days to submit something, right? It happens. I got one right now. It's taking 30 days for a broker to submit it after the application date. But like that lease can be after the application date, but we just have to show proof of this. On the kicker on that, we also added a spot where it has to do with transitioning from a occupied residence to a rental, right? There used to be a period of time where like, hey, there was no guideline that really said it. It was up to the underwriter that said, hey, if I move from this house and I bought a primary, can I cash out refi DSCR for this or whatever, because, I was living there. Well, now we have a guideline in there because this is becoming a bigger thing with people that house hack. You either have to have 6 months seasoning, which means from the time of your new residence, primary, show 6 months of you living there, or you have to show proof of 3 payments, right, on the rental. So if you show that with the lease, then yes, if you just moved out of there, you can get it done. Oh, last two things, and then I'll wrap this up. We dropped the loan amount for our multi-family DSCR loan up to 8 units, right? In the past, it was $400,000. Now you can go as little as $250,000, right? It's still a higher than normal DSCR cost loan with rate, but a lot of people right now are going through hard money, private money for multifamilies because commercial banks aren't buying. Commercial banks aren't producing those loans. Excuse me, it's tough to get. So right now we do offer up to an 8-unit DSCR loan, and it can go as low as $250,000 loan balance. The other thing with that, the other two kickers with the Noni 58 is that you don't have to be a seasoned investor anymore. That was something you had to have. You had to be an experienced investor to buy a multifamily with a DSCR. And then also we went from 1.5 million. Hold on. We went from a $2 million cap to $3.5 million. So now we go up to $3.5 million for those multifamilies as well. So guys, that's just a list of some of the guideline changes, especially just over our business purpose loans. Again, I highly recommend you schedule your time with your account executive, your originator, and talk about these guidelines because there's a lot of changes that went on. And guys, it's great to be at the front end of things, leading the pack, right? We usually do that with our guidelines. We have extended guidelines compared to others. So please reach out to us before you get stuck with another deal or someone that can't get something done. So guys, it's your boy Nathan, the coach here at Win with Nathan. If you have any questions, give me a call. My information is below.